heard the expression, you've got to be in it to win it, right? Well, if you said that to any of these wrestlers, they would probably slap you right in your stupid little face. That's because these men and women have all participated in several Money in the Bank ladder matches without ever capturing the coveted briefcase. Will they ever get their turn? Who knows, but let's hope they don't end up losing any more matches. Their poor hearts and egos might not be able to bear it. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stars who have appeared in the most Money in the Bank matches without winning. Join us. Number 10, Charlotte Flair and others with 3. Okay, we are getting this list off with an admittedly weird start because 10 different men and women have entered 3 Money in the Bank ladder matches without walking away with the briefcase. On the men's side, you've got Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, John Morrison, Evan Bourne, MVP, Finlay, and Shinsuke Nakamura. For the women, there is Naomi, Tamina, and the Queen of WWE, Charlotte Flair. The reason we're putting the spotlight on Charlotte is because out of all the names we just mentioned, it's the biggest shock that she hasn't got a Money in the Bank win to her name. WWE have given her just about every conceivable accolade possible since she arrived in the company in 2013. Despite all of that though, Flair has never gotten her hands on this particular prize. Charlotte has certainly been involved in the Money in the Bank scene though, as she's been cashed in on by 3 separate winners. The first was Carmella in 2018, and then Bayley in 2019, and finally Nikki ASH in 2021. And you'll never guess what, all 3 of those women dropped the belt back to Charlotte once their reign was over. Surprise, surprise. Number 9, Becky Lynch with 4. Like her fellow horsewoman, Becky Lynch failed in 2 separate Money in the Bank matches within the space of 9 days. The 2017 edition of Money in the Bank played host to the first ever all-female ladder match. Lynch was one of the participants vying to win this historic bout, but that honour eventually went to James Ellsworth. The Chinless Wonder, of course, technically won the match for Carmella, but SmackDown GM Daniel Bryan was having none of it. He ordered that a second ladder match containing the original participants be held on SmackDown, which was won by Carmella, again, without the help of Ellsworth this time, fortunately. Anyway, Lynch was now a 2-time loser and followed this up by coming up short in the 2018 and 2022 installments of the contest. The man is another star who has won everything there is to win, so don't be surprised if she does eventually get the briefcase at some point in her career. Chances are she'll cash in on Charlotte only to lose the title right back to her. History is not on Big Time Bex's side. Number 8, Cody Rhodes with 4. Adrenaline in my soul. Ladder matches don't suit Cody Rhodes. The American Nightmare has had several of his own nightmares when competing for the chance to cash in. Rhodes was part of the first ever ladder match to take place on the standalone Money in the Bank pay-per-view, as he was in the mix for the SmackDown prize back in 2010. In a crowded 8-man affair, Cody didn't have much chance to stand out and was almost immediately forgotten about as soon as Kane won the whole thing. He came much closer the following year when he once again opened the show for the Blue Brand. This time he was thwarted by Daniel Bryan, who choked him at the top of a ladder to take him out of the running. Yep, sounds like something Bryan would do. He finished up his 4-year run of back-to-back Money in the Bank matches by failing to overcome Dolph Ziggler in 2012 and then Damien Sandow in 2013. That last one was particularly interesting as Rhodes and Sandow had been tag team partners going into the event and would feud with each other after it. Number 7, Matt Hardy with 4. Our final performer with a quadruplet of shortcomings in Money in the Bank is the tornado slapper himself, Matt Hardy. The elder Hardy boy made his first appearance in the match in the days when it used to be a WrestleMania thing. He was part of the second ever class of Money in the Bank as 6 men battled it out at Mania 22, one of whom was a 57-year-old Ric Flair who Hardy superplexed off a damn ladder. Matt was there the next year at Mania 23, where his main contribution was instructing his brother Jeff to destroy both Edge and himself by jumping off a jumbo ladder. Hardy made a run in at Mania WrestleMania 24 to stop MVP from winning before competing in his final 2 Money in the Bank matches at Mania 26 and at the first standalone pay-per-view later that year. Obviously, Matt was no stranger to ladder matches, so it makes sense that he was in so bloody many of these things. However, WWE obviously never saw him as the same level of star as they did his brother, so it also makes sense they never won one. Number 6, Drew McIntyre with 5. Considering that his entire gimmick was the chosen one, it's shocking that Drew McIntyre never got chosen to win the Money in the Bank briefcase during his first WWE run. The story going into WrestleMania 26 was that McIntyre couldn't actually qualify for the ladder match on his own. Instead, he needed Vince McMahon to put pressure on Teddy Long to overturn his losses. In the end, none of this actually mattered, as our man Drew failed to unhook the briefcase on the day. That said, Jack Swagger failed to unhook that briefcase too, and he still won the match. McIntyre failed at the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view later that year, which would be his final appearance in the match type prior to his 2014 release. He's actually appeared in more Money in the Bank matches since coming back to WWE, turning up in the 2019, 2021, and 2022 editions. Did his time on the Indies give him the skills he needed to finally win? Absolutely not. He's on this list. He lost those 3 matches to Brock Lesnar, Big E, and Austin Theory respectively. And that last one really had to sting, as Theory was essentially doing a retread of the Chosen One gimmick at the time. Brutal. Number 5, Shelton Benjamin with 5. For the first time on this list, we are talking about someone who was in the very first Money in the Bank ladder match. Shelton Benjamin was a perfect fit for this environment. He was young, athletic, and could do things that would make a veteran physicist question everything they knew about the universe. For example, when he ran up a ladder to deliver a clothesline to Chris Jericho, arguably Money in the Bank's first great spot. Benjamin performed so well in this first match that he was asked to come back for the following year's showcase. He was also present at WrestleManias 24, 25, and 26, making him the only person on this list to have never competed in a ladder match at the dedicated Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Unfortunately, Shelton's dazzling ability might actually be the reason he's so high up this list. He was always available to put in a good performance, but the company were never going to pull the trigger on a world title push. And that would explain why he was in so many of these matches without ever winning one. Serves you right for being so damn talented, Mr. Gold Standard. Number 4, Chris Jericho with 5. Y2J might have won that first ladder match at WrestleMania 21 had Shelton Benjamin not defied logic to deliver that clothesline. Chris Jericho wouldn't return to Money in the Bank for 3 years when he rocked up at Mania 24. He then disappeared for another 2 years before taking part in the Raw match on the first standalone show. Jericho's final 2 Money in the Bank appearances were at the 2012 show, where Big Show cost him on that occasion, and in 2016, where he lost to then-rival Dean Ambrose. Losing a match 5 different times is already pretty embarrassing, but it gets worse when you remember that Jericho was the one who pitched the Money in the Bank concept in the first place. Both in storyline and in real life, Jericho is the creator of this stipulation, and yet he has never won one. The most opportune moments for him to win the briefcase would have either been back at the very first match or in 2012, so that he could have continued his feud with WWE Champion CM Punk. Alas, these moments never happened, and it's now very unlikely that he will ever win the match he had a big hand in creating. Number 3, Natalya with 5. When it comes to setting records that don't involve winning anything, you can always count on Natalya. The third generation superstar is the female competitor with the most Money in the Bank appearances without a win, clocking up 5 different matches without so much as a sniff of the briefcase. Like Charlotte and Becky, Natty was in the cluster known as the first 2 women's Money in the Bank matches. Because she didn't have an Ellsworth by her side, she didn't win either of them. Fast forward a year and Natalya was unable to stop Alexa Bliss from winning the contract, and then in 2019, she lost out to Bayley, followed by another unsuccessful try in 2021. Natty is another performer caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to Money in the Bank. She's just too reliable a worker to be left out of the matches, but she was never going to be given the honor of actually winning. However, However, her participation in the 2017 match did give us that bit on Total Divas where Jim Neidhart tries to teach his daughter how to climb a ladder. We can at least be grateful for that, eh? Number 2, Christian with 6. Another ladder match expert, another member of the original Money in the Bank lineup, another man without a single Money in the Bank win to his name. Christian had to watch on as his former partner Edge scooped up the inaugural briefcase back in 2005. He was clearly devastated by this as it took him another 4 years to give it another go. Captain Charisma then competed in the match twice in 1 year, falling short at WrestleMania 26 and again at Money in the Bank 2010 a few months later. 2012 wasn't Christian's year either, and nor was 2013, and this would turn out to be the star's final Money in the Bank appearance as he would be forced to temporarily retire from wrestling the following year. Whilst WWE were chomping at the bit to strap the rocket to Edge, that wasn't the case with his former vampiric brother. For the most part, Christian was seen as mid-card at best in WWE. With so much experience on the steel rungs, WWE were happy to give him a spot in the Money in the Bank match, but there was never a time it felt as though he had a real chance at winning it. Number 1, Kofi Kingston with 7. Kofi Kingston is tied with Kane for the most Money in the Bank appearances ever. However, as the Big Red Machine won the briefcase back in 2010, the sole dishonor of being top of our countdown goes to 1/3 of the New Day. From WrestleMania 25 in 2009 to the 2011 Money in the Bank pay-per-view, Kofi Kingston competed in 4 back-to-back ladder matches to no avail. Sure, he got over massively with some very impressive spots, but none of this mattered when he left the arena empty-handed. Kingston returned to the fold for the 2014 and 2015 matches, but was once again passed over in favor of Seth Rollins and then Sheamus. To date, his final Money in the Bank appearance was in 2018, when Braun Strowman devoured everyone to claim the case for himself. What makes this all worse is that Kingston was apparently meant to win the WrestleMania 26 match before Randy Orton blew up at him on Raw with his famous cry of "Stupid! Stupid!" Imagine how the world would look today if this had never happened. Okay, it probably wouldn't have changed that much, but it's nice to think of things sometimes, isn't it?